Boxer's hoof took a long time to heal. They began rebuilding the windmill the day after the victory celebrations ended. Boxer did not want to take even one day off and tried hard to hide his pain. In the evenings, he told Clover privately that his hoof hurt a lot. Clover treated it with herbal poultices she made by chewing herbs, and both she and Benjamin told Boxer to work less. "A horse's lungs cannot last forever," she said. But Boxer did not listen. He said he had only one goal left, to see the windmill working well before he retired. At first, the retirement age on Animal Farm was set at 12 for horses and pigs, 14 for cows, 9 for dogs, 7 for sheep, and 5 for hens and geese. They agreed to give good old age pensions, but no animal had retired yet. Recently, they talked more about retirement. Now that the small field near the orchard was for barley, there were rumors that part of the big pasture would be fenced off for old animals to graze. A retired horse would get 5 pounds of corn a day, 15 pounds of hay in winter, and a carrot or apple on holidays. Boxer would turn 12 the next summer. Life was still hard. The winter was cold, and food was very short. Rations were reduced again for all animals except the pigs and dogs. Squealer said that strict equal food shares would go against animalism. He also tried to show the animals that they were not really short of food. He called the cuts readjustments, not reductions, and compared their life to the old days with Mr. Say, Jones. He said they had more oats, hay, and turnips than before, worked fewer hours, had better water, lived longer, more babies survived, had more straw, and fewer fleas. The animals believed him. They forgot almost everything about Jones and his time. They knew life was hard and sometimes cold and hungry, but they thought it was worse before. And now they were free, which was the most important thing. There were many more animals to feed now because the 4 sows had 31 piglets at once. The young pigs were spotted, and since Napoleon was the only male pig, everyone knew who their father was. It was said they would build a schoolhouse in the farmhouse garden when they had enough bricks and wood. For now, Napoleon taught the young pigs himself in the kitchen. The piglets played in the garden, but were not allowed to play with other young animals. Around this time, a rule said that when a pig met another animal on the path, the other animal must move aside. Also, all pigs were allowed to wear green ribbons on their tails on Sundays, no matter their rank. The farm had done well that year, but still did not have enough money. They needed to buy bricks, sand, and lime to build a schoolroom, and they had to save money again to buy machines for the windmill. They also needed lamp oil and candles for the house, sugar for Napoleon's table. He did not allow other pigs to have sugar because he said it made them fat, and usual supplies like tools, nails, string, coal, wire, scrap iron, and Dodd biscuits. They sold some hay and part of the potato crop. The contract for eggs was increased to 600 a week, so the hens barely hatched enough chicks to keep their numbers the same. But the pigs seemed healthy and were even gaining weight. One day in February, a strong, nice smell came from the old brew house near the kitchen. It smelled like cooking barley. The animals hoped it was food for them, but no warm food came. On Sunday, it was announced that all barley would now be for the pigs. The field near the orchard was already planted with barley. It was also known that every pig got a pint of beer daily, and Napoleon himself got half a gallon, served in a special bowl. Life was hard, but there were more songs, speeches, and parades to celebrate Animal Farm's victories. Napoleon made a rule that once a week the animals should march around the farm in order, led by pigs, then horses, cows, sheep, and poultry, with dogs on the sides and Napoleon's black rooster leading. Boxer and Clover carried a green flag with a hoof and horn and the words, "Long live Comrade Napoleon." After the march, poems and speeches praised Napoleon, and sometimes a gun was fired. The sheep loved these marches and would silence complaints by shouting, "4 legs good, 2 legs bad." Most animals liked the celebrations because they reminded them they were free and working for themselves. In April, Animal Farm became a republic and elected Napoleon as president without opposition. That day, newspapers said Snowball had helped Jones and fought for humans, not against them. He had led the human soldiers. In the middle of summer, Moses the Raven came back to the farm after many years away. He looked the same and did no work. He talked a lot about Sugar Candy Mountain, a happy place where animals would rest forever. Moses said he had seen the fields of clover and sugar growing there. Many animals believed him because their lives were hard and they hoped for a better place. The pigs said his stories were lies, but let him stay and gave him some beer every day. After Boxer's hoof healed, he worked harder than ever. Like all the animals who worked very hard that year, the school for young pigs started in March. Boxer looked tired but kept working, saying, "I will work harder." Clover and Benjamin told him to rest, but he didn't listen. One summer evening, a rumor spread that Boxer was hurt while moving stones for the windmill. Animals rushed to find him lying down, very weak and bleeding from his mouth. Clover was very worried. Boxer said his lung hurt, but he hoped the others could finish the windmill without him. Clover sent for Squealer, who told the animals that Napoleon was very sad and would send Boxer to the hospital in Willingdon. The animals were worried because no one except Molly and Snowball had ever left the farm. Squealer said the hospital was better for Boxer's treatment. After some rest, Boxer managed to limp back to his stall where Clover and Benjamin cared for him. The pigs gave medicine and Clover gave it to Boxer twice a day. Boxer was not sad and hoped to live 3 more years, looking forward to resting and learning more letters of the alphabet. However, Benjamin and Clover could only be with Boxer after working hours, and it was in the middle of the day when the van came to take him away. The animals were all at work weeding turnips under the supervision of a pig, when they were astonished to see Benjamin come galloping from the direction of the farm buildings, braying at the top of his voice. It was the first time that they had ever seen Benjamin excited. Indeed, it was the first time that anyone had ever seen him gallop. "Quick, quick," he shouted. "Come at once. They're taking Boxer away." Without waiting for orders from the pig, the animals broke off work and raced back to the farm buildings. Sure enough, there in the yard was a large closed van drawn by 2 horses, with lettering on its side and a sly-looking man in a low-crowned bowler hat sitting on the driver's seat, and Boxer's stall was empty. The animals crowded round the van. "Fools!" shouted Benjamin, prancing round them and stamping the earth with his small hoofs. "Fools! Do you not see what is written on the side of that van?" That gave the animals pause, and there was a hush. Muriel began to spell out the words, but Benjamin pushed her aside, and in the midst of a deadly silence he read, "Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler, Willingdon. Dealer in hides and bone meal. Kennels supplied." Do you not understand what that means? They are taking Boxer to the knackers. A cry of horror burst from all the animals. At this moment the man on the box whipped up his horses, and the van moved out of the yard at a smart trot. All the animals followed, crying out at the tops of their voices. Clover forced her way to the front. The van began to gather speed. Clover tried to stir her stout limbs to a gallop and achieved a canter. "Boxer!" she cried. "Boxer! Boxer!" And just at this moment, as though he had heard the uproar outside, Boxer's face, with the white stripe down his nose, appeared at the small window at the back of the van. "Boxer!" cried Clover in a terrible voice. "Boxer, get out. Get out quickly." It was uncertain whether Boxer had understood what Clover had said, but a moment later his face disappeared from the window, and there was the sound of a tremendous drumming of hoofs inside the van. He was trying to kick his way out. The time had been when a few kicks from Boxer's hoofs would have smashed the van to matchwood. But alas, his strength had left him, and in a few moments the sound of drumming hoofs grew fainter and died away. In desperation, the animals began appealing to the two horses which drew the van to stop. "Comrades, comrades," they shouted, "don't take your own brother to his death." But the stupid brutes, too ignorant to realize what was happening, merely set back their ears and quickened their pace. Boxer's face did not reappear at the window. Too late. Someone thought of racing ahead and shutting the 5-barred gate, but in another moment the van was through it and rapidly disappearing down the road. Boxer was never seen again. 3 days later, it was announced that he had died in the hospital at Willingdon. In spite of receiving every attention a horse could have, Squealer came to announce the news to the others. He had, he said, been present during Boxer's last hours. "It was the most affecting sight I have ever seen," said Squealer, lifting his trotter and wiping away a tear. "I was at his bedside at the very last, and at the end, almost too weak to speak. He whispered in my ear that his sole sorrow was to have passed on before the windmill was finished. 'Forward, comrades,' he whispered. 'Forward in the name of the rebellion. Long live Animal Farm. Long live Comrade Napoleon. Napoleon is always right.' Those were his very last words, comrades." Here, Squealer's demeanor suddenly changed. He fell silent for a moment, and his little eyes darted suspicious glances from side to side before he proceeded. It had come to his knowledge, he said, that a foolish and wicked rumor had been circulated at the time of Boxer's removal. Some of the animals had noticed that the van which took Boxer away was marked "Horse Slaughterer," and had actually jumped to the conclusion that Boxer was being sent to the knackers. "It was almost unbelievable," said Squealer, "that any animal could be so stupid." "Surely," he cried indignantly, whisking his tail and skipping from side to side, "surely they knew their beloved leader, Comrade Napoleon, better than that?" But the explanation was really very simple. The van had previously been the property of the knacker, and had been bought by the veterinary surgeon who had not yet painted the old name out. That was how the mistake had arisen. The animals were enormously relieved to hear this. And when Squealer went on to give further graphic details of Boxer's deathbed, the admirable care he had received, and the expensive medicines for which Napoleon had paid without a thought as to the cost, their last doubts disappeared, and the sorrow that they felt for their comrade's death was tempered by the thought that at least he had died happy. Napoleon himself appeared at the meeting on the following Sunday morning and pronounced a short oration in Boxer's honor. It had not been possible, he said, to bring back their lamented comrade's remains for interment on the farm, but he had ordered a large wreath to be made from the laurels in the farmhouse garden and sent down to be placed on Boxer's grave. And in a few days' time the pigs intended to hold a memorial banquet in Boxer's honor. Napoleon ended his speech with a reminder of Boxer's two favorite maxims: "I will work harder," and "Comrade Napoleon is always right." Maxims, he said, which every animal would do well to adopt as his own. On the day appointed for the banquet, a grocer's van drove up from Willingdon and delivered a large wooden crate at the farmhouse. That night there was the sound of uproarious singing, which was followed by what sounded like a violent quarrel and ended at about 11 o'clock with a tremendous crash of glass. No one stirred in the farmhouse before noon on the following day, and the word went round that from somewhere or other the pigs had acquired the money to buy themselves another case of whiskey.